If you hate hypothetical job interview questions, try this strategy with the help of ChatGPT. So, what is the biggest challenge with hypothetical questions? Most candidates don't go in with a very specific plan for answering these types of questions. And a big part of that plan should be creating role specific, pre planned assumptions because you likely have an idea of the types of challenges you'll face in this role, and bringing in a little bit of creativity and assumptiveness when solving is critical because narrowing your focus helps interviewers visualize what you're talking about. No visuals, no specifics, and you will quickly find that your interviewer is not paying attention. Why? Because unlike a behavioral answer that's a story of telling what you did and how you did it, hypothetical answers live in this world of ambiguity, and being generic when answering these types of questions simply puts your interviewers to sleep. So let me show you how ChatGPT can help. Let's dive right into a screen share. Okay, so this is the prompt I used for ChatGPT. I said, I'm interviewing for a technical program manager role, machine learning software at Google. I copy and pasted this from the Google's careers page. Google asked a lot of hypothetical questions. I want to create assumptions of scenarios I would likely face in this role based on the following job description and what you know about Google's products and clients. Can you please create 10 sets of different assumptions regarding this role and take into consideration key people, clients, processes, strategies, data, and technologies? Please make these assumptions both robust and creative. These assumptions should allow me to solve hypothetical questions with very specific data. So, how have we set up this prompt? And I'll put this prompt in the YouTube description. We're finding a very specific role. We're also adding the context of what do you know about this company and its products? So, especially for these big companies, ChatGPT, the data goes up to 2021, so it still has a good pulse and idea of what's going on with the organization. Then these assumptions. The biggest challenge with hypothetical questions is that we go in without a plan. What ChatGPT will do is create some role-specific assumptions that we can actually use during the interview for our answers. This is pre-planning assumptions and is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful tool when answering hypothetical questions. So we create this prompt, we throw the job description right in here. I cleaned it up a little bit before I put it in there. And then this is what ChatGPT does. It creates some scenarios. Now, what you can see instantly from these scenarios, and this happens pretty much every time, is that these assumptions are okay, but they're not as specific as I would like. And no matter what I do in the prompting, it just wouldn't get specific enough. But you can see they're focused in on some interesting areas. Google Search, Google Translate, Google Assistant, automated customer support, ethical AI, super important, content modernization for YouTube, research project with Google Brain, data privacy for large language models for deployment, enhancing Google Ads with large language models, and disaster response. So they're all really interesting, but I just wanted to make them a little bit more robust, and I actually kept it this way specifically because this will happen to you. So now what I did is I said, look, we're off to a great start. Just make these a little bit more robust. So then what it did is it focused in on making some key assumptions just to create the general assumption, and then talked about key people, processes, strategies, technologies, and the overall challenges. These are very, very specific, and I'll just kind of slowly roll through, but what you can see here is it's done a very, very good job, and I'm going to, again, intentionally scroll through here so you can pause anytime to see any of these assumptions and what they actually look like. Because now what we're doing is we're pre-planning to answer hypothetical questions, which oftentimes can be pretty vague, and we have these scenarios that we can build off of. Training your brain, and ironically we're hitting Google Brain here, training your brain to take this step will be a massive game changer and difference when you're in the interviews. So then we get down to, okay, we have 10 great assumptions. You can really dive in and take a look and see which ones you like more. But Now that we have these assumptions, well, let's test them. So I basically asked ChatGPT to create 20 hypothetical job interview questions. And I say, make sure they're hypothetical, not behavioral. If you don't add that additional detail in, oftentimes ChatGPT is going to give you a mix of hypothetical and behavioral. You have to call that item out. It's super helpful. And then I said, kind of make them generic enough so that I could use a number of these assumptions. And I said, create 20, just so we could have some fun. Now it's creating the area, and that's fine. These are all great questions. And again, I'll kind of scroll slowly through here in case you want to pause and write any of these questions down, because they're all pretty good. So now as we get into the next stage, I'm like, okay, well, why don't we test this? Because if we have a really good assumption, why don't we build the other two parts of our answers, which is really coming in, asking great clarifying questions, creating a great framework, then building our assumptions and solving. So let's have ChatGPT create those first two steps for us. So now we have a well-defined plan to use specific assumptions. Then we're going to have our set clarifying questions and our set framework based on these questions. And we can basically go in with that plan, and obviously we'll pivot if necessary. But I essentially said, awesome. Now I'd like to take question 4, which was a question on innovation, and expanded scenario 2 and take a couple of additional steps. Now I was asking with the clarifying questions to really make sure that they're not open-ended here and that they're either or, yes or no questions. These are questions that your interviewer is more likely to answer. And then I said, can you provide me with 10 concepts to focus in on to help solve? This is our framework. This is our outline. This becomes the focus area before we dive into our assumptions and solution. And then here's what it came up with. So we used question 2, again, a question about innovation, and we used scenario 2 and question 4. So scenario 2 was developing a large language model for Google Translate, which it highlights, so it reminds us. And then question 4 was, can you describe a strategy for developing a machine learning solution that addresses a novel user need for our market gap? So then we're asking clarifying questions around data sources, resource allocation, user feedback, model training, and performance metrics. We have a really good idea of the questions to ask. Now, of course, these can be pretty common go-to questions. This will help you prep on your clarifying questions. Based on the question, you might change them up a little bit, but these are good questions to start with. And again, all really hitting on these key points. Then the key concepts, our framework. Things like data collection, model training, cultural nuances, etc. These are all going to be great concepts. What we're trying to do, and I know this may feel a little vague, it might have some ambiguity, but we are pre-planning for success in our hypothetical answers. And so when we come in with a scenario or in this case, multiple scenarios that we might want to build off of, we're coming in with scenarios that are likely to happen in the role. And we are going to not only help get ChatGPT to help create those scenarios, but then they're going to start to create go-to clarifying questions, go-to frameworks. And even if you don't like any of these assumptions, you don't love the clarifying questions, and you don't love the framework concepts, it's at least training your brain to show you the steps with the help of GPT, and that will really save you a ton of time. I want to close with an analogy that often I use with my interview clients. I tell my interview clients, don't give me food, give me pepperoni pizza. What do I mean? 99% of candidates answer hypothetical questions in a generic fashion. They give me food, and I like food, but since I can't picture it, the answer falls short of the desired result, and it's not memorable. Whereas with pepperoni pizza, we have a very specific visual, and these are the specific assumptions that you're pre-planning. So when I answer, or when you answer using pepperoni pizza, I can see the dough, I can see the marinara, I can see the cheese, I can see the pepperonis, I can see it going into the oven. I have all these visuals, and so maybe one of those framework concepts, you're focusing in on the pepperoni pizza to start with those really good assumptions, and maybe the assumptions aren't just any pepperoni pizza, but it's pepperoni pizza from Joe's in Manhattan, right by Times Square, a really famous pizza shop. When creating these visuals, now you can see you're along that pepperoni pizza journey with me. And you didn't even realize why. And because it's so important to create these visuals, it will be absolutely critical for your success. If you have any stories of where you've been really successful bringing in assumptions in your hypothetical answers, leave it in the comments below. If you like my content, please comment, and please subscribe. Thanks so much.